So hello, my name is Cynthia Pendergast, but people call me Cindy. Because, believe it or not, we have three Cynthias in the room today. Cynthia Hodges, she's actually our vice president, so I'm president of the Frederick Douglass Neighborhood Association, so call me Cindy. Cynthia is our vice president, so that's why we have to know who you're talking about, and then we have another reader named Cynthia today. So, but anyway, all that to say, can I welcome you to come to this wonderful, wonderful event. I think it's such a powerful, powerful example of community, but also our history in Brockton. But I'd like to bring up our mayor today, who would like to welcome you officially.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mayor.
Thank you, Cindy. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am so proud to be here as the mayor, but more importantly as a Brocktonian. We always come together. That's what we do in Brockton, right? They call us the City of Champions. It's the people that are the champions. But we also have to remember the history of the city of Brockton. The fact that Mr. Douglass was here himself, personally here, to talk about the evils of slavery, to talk about what is right. And in the craziness of Washington and our current times, we need to look at this quote right here, because that quote rings true. It really, really does. During the darkest times, it's the struggle, but through that dark time and that struggle, we're gonna make progress. And we always set the tone here in the city of Brockton. I wanna thank Cindy and everybody that comes here every day and every year. I wanna thank Councilor Suna Castro for being here. Our Chief of Staff, Sidney Merrill, is gonna be saying a few words and speaking Mr. Douglass's words. But one thing I do wanna share with all of you is that when I came here as a city councilor many years ago, Lynn Smith, you know Lynn Smith, who did so much here. Give her a round of applause. She had said to me, Bob, the Liberty Tree down the street is not owned by the city of Brockton. And I never knew that. I just assumed it was, right? It's our piece of history. So when I became mayor, I asked the city solicitor, the attorney, to acquire it. So we did a friendly taking. We bought it for less than $5,000. It is our tree now. And if you go by it today, it looks a lot different than 2 weeks ago, because our DPW went in and they ripped out all the nasty trees that were around it. We had an arborist from Bridgewater State University go there last week to look at it. The root system is a little damaged, but within the next, I'd say 4 weeks, you're gonna see a marked improvement down there. It's gonna be beautified. Cindy's been there since day one, and Sydney, we are gonna be putting up a bust. It's going to be between $50,000 and $75,000 of ARPA money, federal money that we got through the county, because one of our towns in Plymouth County did not use their tranche, so we got it, which is great. So it's going to be a bust of Frederick Douglass right next to the Liberty Tree. So you know, that's what it's all about. We have to learn from history to forge ahead to the future. Next year when I'm here, I'll be the former mayor. But I will definitely be here, because we have a lot more work to do. We need to follow the wisdom and the words of Frederick Douglass. God bless each and every one of you. Let's continue to make Brockton great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate your efforts to make sure this history is not forgotten, and your whole staff, so thank you. So why don't we get things started? I have a lot more to say later, but we want to get to our main event. So I'm going to give you some instruction, then I'm going to invite our historian, Willie Wilson, up. So you notice I'm holding this microphone nice and close to my mouth. So that's what you're each going to do when you come up to read. You're going to hold it nice and close, read loud with emotion, and then hand the mic to the next person. So I'm going to invite the first 5 readers to come up, and you're going to line up here right now, please. The first 5 readers, so you know who you are. When you're reading, if there happens to be a siren or noise that goes by, just pause. It's okay. We're just going to relax. It's a city. Things are going on, right? There's activity. So we're just going to pause, and then you can continue with your speech. What I would like you to do when you come up to the mic is say nice and loud your name, the paragraph number, and what language. Because we have the languages of our city represented today. So thank you. And we have our friends at BCA here today that are filming this. So don't be nervous. This is a community event and we're all friends. So, did I forget anything?
Silence on the phones.
Oh, could you please silence your cell phones? Please. Thank you, Willie. Willie's done this before. So, I would like to introduce Willie Wilson Jr. He is our resident historian on all things Frederick Douglass and has been such a resource to us. And before I forget, sorry, the mayor mentioned the Liberty Tree. When the tree was cut down in 2004, the original tree, they saved some of the pieces of the tree, the branches. Over on the table here is a branch from the original tree. So in our presence, we have a piece of the tree that Frederick Douglass spoke under. Amazing, amazing history. The mayor gifted Frederick Douglass Neighborhood Association this wonderful, wonderful artifact, and so we're so grateful for that. So, and then after the speech, please feel free to go down the Liberty Tree, walk around the gardens that are cared for by our group, the Frederick Douglass Neighborhood Association, and so without further ado, Willie Wilson.
So it's, I'm glad to be here this morning, and it's hard to believe, but just this past March marked 376 years since Miles Standish sold the land that is now Brockton in East Bridgewater at Sachem Rock. And it was 173 years ago that Frederick Douglass made this speech. And so many people say, well, why, what was the connection Frederick Douglass had to North Bridgewater? So it was actually Edward Eels Bennett, who was a conductor of the Underground Railroad, who had his home a few yards from here. And Frederick Douglass spoke here, and he and Frederick Douglass were friends. So there is that connection. So with little further ado, I'm glad that so many people have been able to make it this morning. Now, this speech was delivered in 1852, July 5th, at Rochester, New York's Corinthian Hall. And Frederick Douglass was addressing the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. So as you know, Frederick Douglass escaped from slavery from Baltimore, went to New York, and then from New York lived in New Bedford. From New Bedford, he lived in Lynn, where he wrote his first narrative, and then he moved to Rochester, and then from Rochester to Anacostia, Washington, D.C. So this is the first paragraph. Mr. President, friends and fellow citizens, the task before me is one which requires much previous thought and study for its proper performance. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before any assembly more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my ability than I do this day. The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th of July oration. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between this platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable. And the difficulties to be overcome in getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today is to me a matter of astonishment as well as gratitude.
Thank you. All right, gotta put my glasses on. Good morning. My name is Marlene Amidi, and I will read number 2 in Haitian Creole and number 3 in English. All right. Jodia, nous avons célébré 4 juillet. Nous avons fêté anniversaire indépendance pays. Et puis liberté politique, ou avons joui en tant que citoyen. Jour ça pour nous, c'est un coup fait Pâques pour peuple bon Dieu. Date journée jodia, femme tourner dans un moment qui était un moment vraiment difficile. OK? Délivrance pour nous. Célébration ça a marqué commencement yon l'autre l'année dans l'existence pays. Li fin passé tout que République Peuple Américain fondé a gen 76 ans. Citoyen moins content pays la gêne. Ça veut dire li toujours la période enfance li. Moi après péter encore content c'est comme ça lié. Gagner un pile l'espoir dans parole ça. N'a besoin en pile l'espoir en bas période difficile nous va joindre puis devant. All right. So I'm gonna do the third paragraph in English. Fellow citizen, the simple story is that 76 years ago, the people of the country were British subjects, the style and title of our sovereign people, in which you now glory, was not then born. You were under the British crown. Your fathers esteemed the English government in the home government, England, and the fatherland, although a considerable distance from your home and posed in the exercise of its parental prerogative upon its colonial children. Such restraint, burden, and limitation as, in its mature judgment, it's deemed wise, right, and proper.
My name is Juliana, and I will be reading the fourth paragraph in English. But your fathers, who had not adopted the idea of the infallibility of government and the absolute character of its acts, presumed to differ from the home government in respect to the wisdom and the justice of those burdens and restraints. They went so far as to pronounce the measures of government unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive, and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. I scarcely need say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers, feeling themselves harshly and unjustly treated by the home government. Your fathers, like men of honesty and men of spirit, earnestly sought redress. They petitioned and remonstrated. They did so in a decorous, respectful, and loyal manner. This, however, did not answer the purpose. They saw themselves treated with sovereign indifference, coldness, and scorn.
Hey everybody, my name's Wes. I'll be reading paragraph 5 and 6. Alright. Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your father became restrictive under this treatment. They felt themselves the victims of egregious wrongs, wholeheartedly incurable in their colony capacity. With brave men, there is always a remedy for oppression. Just here, the idea of a total separation of the colonies from the crown was born. It was a startling idea, much more so than we, at the distance of time, regarded. The timid and the prudent of that day were of course, shocked and alarmed by it. Their opposition to then dangerous thought was earnest and powerful, but amid all their terror and the frightened vocations against it, the alarming and revolutionary idea moved on, and the country with it. On the second day of July 1776, the Old Colony Congress, to the dismay of the lovers of ease and the worshippers of property, quaffed the dreadful idea with all authority of national sanction. They did so in the form of a resolution. We seldom hit upon resolutions drawn up in our day whose transparency is at all equal. It resolved that these united colonies and of right out to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from allegiance of the British Crown.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Asa Gertie O'Neill, and I will be reading in French and then in English. The seventh paragraph in French and the eighth one in English. Chers citoyens, Vos pères ont persévéré dans l'accomplissement de ce but. Ils ont réussi. Et aujourd'hui, vous récoltez les fruits de leur succès. La liberté acquise vous appartient. Vous pouvez donc célébrer dignement cet anniversaire. Le 4 juillet est le premier grand événement de l'histoire de votre nation, le point d'ancrage de votre destinée encore inachevée. Now in English, fellow citizens, I am not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statements, patriots, and heroes. And for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Quinn, and I'll be reading paragraph 9 in English. They loved their country better than their own private interests, and all will concede that it is a rare virtue that ought to command respect. He who will intelligently lay down his life for his country is a man whom is not in humane nature to despise. Sorry, let me start over here. Sorry. This is terrible. They loved their country better than their own private interests, and all will concede that it is a rare virtue that ought to command respect. He who will intelligently lay down his life for his country is a man whom it is not in humane nature to despise. Your fathers staked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the cause of this country, their country.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Cynthia Phillips Kaipu. I'm reading paragraph number 10. They were peacemen, but they preferred revolution of peaceful submission to bondage. They were quiet men, but they did not shrink from agitating against oppression. They showed forbearance, but they knew their limits. They believed in order, but not in the order of tyranny. With them, nothing was settled. Nothing was settled that was not right. With them, justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. You may well cherish the memory of such men. They were great in their day and in their generation. Their solid manhood stands out the more as we contrast it with these degenerate times.
Once again, Patrick Quinn, paragraph 11. How circumspect, exact, and proportionate were all their movements. How unlike the politicians of an hour. Their statesmanship looked beyond the passing moment and stretched away in strength into the distant future, fully appreciating the hardship to be encountered, firmly believing in the right of their cause, wisely measuring the terrible odds against them. Your fathers, the fathers of this republic, laid the cornerstone of the national superstructure, which has risen and still rises in grandeur around you. Of this fundamental work, this day is the anniversary.
Good morning. Chief Jackson, paragraph 12 in English. My business, if I have any here today, is with the present. The accepted time with God and His cause is the ever-living now. We have to do with the past only as we can make it useful to the present and to the future. Now is the time, the important time. Your fathers have lived, died, and have done their work, and have done much of it well. You live and must die, and you must do your work. You have no right to enjoy a child's share in the labor of your fathers, unless your children are to be blessed by your labors. You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned fame of your fathers to cover your indolence.
Steve Townsend, paragraph 13 in English. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I, therefore, called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting in your independence to us?
Susan Thomas C., paragraph 14 in English. Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful.
Sophia Simmons, chapter 15 in Portuguese and chapter 16 in English. Mas esse não é o caso. Digo isso com uma triste sensação de diferenças entre nós. Não estou incluído na clara importância desta gloriosa aventura. A altura da vossa independência apenas revela a distância imensurável entre nós. I will now read chapter 16 in English. The blessings in which you, this day, rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence, bequeathed by your fathers, is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought you life and healing to you has brought strife and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. Drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty, and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems, wherein human mockery and sacrilege irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions, whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them.
All right, my name is Jamie Hodges, and I'm going to be reading paragraphs 17 and 18. My subject, then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day from the slave's point of view. Standing here, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to the false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged in the name of liberty, which is feathered in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all the emphasis I can command everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not advocate, I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me, that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is not at heart at the slaveholder, shall not confess to be right and just.
Thank you. Marlene Amidi, paragraph 19 in Haitian Creole. Eh bien, citoyens, moi pral parler sous l'esclavage dans le pays États-Unis. Moi pral faire ouais comment yon esclave ouais jou ça. Pendant camper devant, m'a mette tête moi dans peau yon citoyen américain qui a dévotion pour pays. Moi pas hésiter déclarer à toute force moi que caractère à comportement pays si là pas jamais pi mal passe pas jamais pi mal que Jean lié jodi a. this is true. Kit nou pran sa yo te di tan zanset yo, ou soit gros déclaration ak l'idée kapè brase epi développé jodi ya, façon nation mène bak li nan la honte, et bagay qui pour révolter moun. L'Amérique pas censé ak tèt li nan tan zanset yo. Li toujours ap bay tèt li manti jodi ya. Et Jean prale a li pap jam jwen ak vérité.
Carol Griffin, I will read paragraph 20 in English. Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and reasonable being?
Good morning, Miles Jackson. I'll be reading paragraph 21 and paragraph 22. Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding, under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or write. When you can point to any such laws in reference to the beast of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls of the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from a brute, then I will argue with you that the slave is a man. 22. For the present, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in the metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, enciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manners of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding the sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove we are men.
Good morning, everyone. My name is LaTonda Merricks, and I'll be reading paragraphs 23 and 24 in English. Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty, that he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? It is to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood. How should I look today in the presence of Americans to show that men have a natural right to freedom? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding that there is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him. Number 24. What am I to argue that is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with their lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auctions, to dishonor their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh. To starve them into obedience and submission to their masters. Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No. I will not. I have better employments of my time and strength than such arguments much would apply.
Deb Garland, paragraph 25, in English. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhumane cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? I cannot. The time for such argument is past.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Leona Martin, I'll be reading paragraph 26 in English. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. Yes, we do. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sydney Marrow, and I'll be reading paragraph 27 in English. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, a hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up the crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Mark Osborne. I'll be reading paragraph 28 in French and 29 in English. Il n'y a pas de pays sur cette terre coupable de pratiques plus choquantes et sanglantes que sont, en cette heure même, le peuple de ces États-Unis. Allez où vous voulez, cherchez comme il vous plaira, parcourez tous les royaumes et les despotismes du vieux monde, dénichez chaque abus, Et lorsque vous aurez mis la main sur le dernier d'entre eux, placez vos faits côte à côte avec les pratiques quotidiennes de cette nation, et vous direz avec moi, par sa barbarie révoltante et son hypocrisie éhontée, l'Amérique règne sans égal. Take the American slave trade, which is especially prosperous just now, and carried on in all the large towns and cities in one half of this Confederacy. In several states, this trade is a chief source of wealth. It is called the internal slave trade, in order to divert from it the horror with which the foreign slave trade is contemplated. That trade has long since been denounced by this government as piracy, as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, this nation keeps a squadron at immense cost on the coast of Africa. Everywhere in this country, it is safe to speak of this foreign slave trade as a most inhuman traffic, opposed alike to the laws of God and man. It is, however, a notable fact that while so much execration is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in a foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable.
Good morning. I am Susan Nicastro, reading paragraph 30 in English. Now I can see it. Behold the practical operation of this internal slave trade, the American slave trade, sustained by American politics and American religion. Have you seen men and women reared like swine for the market? You know what is a swine drover? I will show you a man drover. They inhabit all our southern states. They perambulate the country and crowd the highways of the nation with droves of human stock. You will see one of these human flesh jobbers armed with pistol, whip, and bowie knife, driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac to the slave market at New Orleans. These wretched people are to be sold singly or in lots to suit purchasers. They are food for the cotton field and the deadly sugar mill.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Governor Councilor Tamisha Civil, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Mark the sad procession as it moves wearily along an inhumane wrench of drives them. Hear his savage yells and his blood-chilling oath as he hurries on his affrighted captives. There, see the old man with lock-thin grace. Cast one glance, if you please, upon the young mother whose shoulders are bare to scorching sun, her briny tears falling on the brows of a babe in her arms. See to that girl of 13, weeping, yes, weeping, as she thinks of her mother from whom she has been torn. The droves moved hardly. Heat and sorrow have nearly consumed their strength. Suddenly you hear a quick snap, like a discharge of a rifle. The fetters clank, and the chains rattle simultaneously. Your ears are saluted with a scream that seems to have torn away to the center of the soul. The crack you heard was the sound of the slave whip. The scream you heard was from the woman you saw with the babe. Her speed had faltered under the weight of her child and her chains. The gash on her shoulders tells her to move on.
Richard Reed. I'll be reading paragraph 32 in English. Follow the drove to New Orleans. Attend the auction. See men examined like horses. See the forms of women rudely and brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. See this drove sold and separated forever, and never forget the deep, sad sobs that arose from the scattered multitude. Tell me, citizens, where, under the sun, you can witness a spectacle more fiendish and shocking. Yet this is but a glance at the American slave trade as it exists at this moment in the United States.
Good morning, Matthew Stanton. I'll be reading 33. Fellow citizens, this murderous traffic is today in active operation in this boasted republic. In the solitude of my spirit, I see clouds of dust raised on the highways of the South. I see the bleeding footsteps. I hear the doleful wail of fettered humanity on the way to the slave markets, where the victims are to be sold like horses, sheep, and swine, knocked off to the highest bidder. There I see the tenderest ties ruthlessly broken to gratify the lust, caprice, and rapacity of the buyers and sellers of men.
Larkspur Morton. I will be reading 34 in Spanish and 35 in English. Pero hay un estado inhumano, vergonzoso y escandaloso de cosas que queda a ser presentado. Por una acción del Congreso americano que aún tiene 2 años, la esclavitud se ha sido nacionalizado en su forma horrible y repugnante. La línea de Mason y Dixon se ha sido destruido. Nueva York estuvo como Virginia, y el poder de poseer, cazar y vender los hombres, las mujeres y los niños, porque los esclavos no quedan una institución del Estado solo, pero ahora es una institución de todos los Estados Unidos. And 35. The power is coextensive with the Star-Spangled Banner and American Christianity. Where these go, may also go the merciless slave hunter. Where these are, man is not sacred. He is a bird for the sportsman's gun. By that most foul and fiendish of all human decrees, the liberty and person of every man are put in peril. Your broad republican domain is hunting ground for men.
My name is Elijah. I'm reading paragraph 36. Your lawmakers have commanded all good citizens to engage in this hellish sport. Your president, your secretary of state, enforce as a duty you owe your free and glorious country, and your God, that you do this accursed thing. Not fewer than 40 Americans have, within the past 2 years, been hunted down without a moment's warning, hurried away in chains, and co-signed to slavery and excruciating torture. Some of these have had wives and children, depended on them for bread, but this, no account was made. The right of the hunter to his prey stands superior to the right of marriage and all rights in this republic, the rights of God included.
Miles Jackson again, and I'll be reading paragraph 37. For black men, there are neither law nor justice, humanity nor religion. The fugitive slave law makes mercy to them a crime and bribes the judges who tries them. An American judge gets $10 for every victim he consigns to slavery, and $5 when he fails to do so. The oath of any 2 villains is sufficient under this hell-black enactment to send the most pious and exemplary black men into remorseless jaws of slavery. His own testimony is nothing. He can bring no witness for himself. The minister of American justice is bound by the law to hear but one side, and that side is the side of oppression, of the oppressor. Let this damning fact be perpetually told. Let it be thundered around the world. that in tyrant-killing, king-hating, people-loving, democratic, Christian American, the seats of justice are filled with judges who hold their offices under an open and palatable bribe and are bound in deciding in the case of man's liberty to hear only his accusers.
My name's Frank Famularo. I'll be reading number 38 here. In glaring violations of justice and shameless disregards of the forms of the administration, laws and cunning arrangements to entrap the defenseless and the diabolical intent of fugitive slaves, laws stand alone in the animal of triangle with logistical justice.
Steve Thomas, paragraph 39. Americans, your Republican politics, not less than your Republican religion, are flagrantly inconsistent. You boast of your love of liberty, your superior civilization, and your pure Christianity, while the whole political power of the nation is solemnly pledged to support and perpetuate the enslavement of 3 million of your countrymen. You hurl your anathemas at the crowned-headed tyrants of Russia and Austria and pride yourself on your democratic institutions, while you yourselves consent to be the mere tools and bodyguards of the tyrants of Virginia and Carolina. You invite to your shores fugitives of oppression from abroad. Honor them with banquets, greet them with ovations, cheer them, toast them, salute them, protect them, and pour out your money to them like water. But the fugitives from your own land you advertise, hunt, arrest, shoot, and kill.
Susan Thomas, paragraph 40 in English. You discourse eloquently on the dignity of labor, yet you sustain a system which in its very essence casts a stigma upon labor. You can bare your bosom to the storm of British artillery to throw off a 3-penny tax on tea, and yet wring the last hard-earned farthing from the grasp of black laborers of your country. You profess to believe, quote, that of one blood God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of all the earth, and hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another, unquote. Yet you notoriously hate and glory in your hatred all men whose skins are not colored like your own.
Deacon Cynthia Phillips, Kaipu Messiah Baptist Church. Just take a moment. With me, take a moment. 1852, 2025. Hundreds of years ago? Not really. I'm going to read paragraph 41. You declare before the world and are understood by the world to declare that you hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet, you hold securely in a bondage which, according to your own Thomas Jefferson, is worse than ages of that which your fathers rose in rebellion to oppose. Is worse than that of which your fathers rose in rebellion to oppose. a seventh part of the inhabitants of your country. Take a moment.
Yes. Take a moment indeed and hear the words that were written so long ago. Hear them fresh. Fellow citizens, I will not enlarge you further on your national inconsistencies. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base pretense, and your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing and a byword to a mocking earth. Be warned, a horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and fling from the hideous monster, and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever. By the way, I'm Cynthia Pendergast.
Allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work toward the downfall of slavery. I therefore leave off where I began, with hope, while drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions. My spirit is cheered by the obvious tendencies of the age. Nations do not stand in the same relation to each other that they did ages ago. No nation can now shut itself up from the surrounding world and trot round in the same old paths of its fathers without interference. The time when such could be done. But a change has now come over the affairs of mankind. Walled cities and empires have become unfashionable. The arm of commerce has borne away the gates of the strong city. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. Wind, steam, and lightning are its chartered agents. Oceans no longer divide but link nations together. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Space is comparatively annihilated. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic are distinctively heard on the other. In the fervent aspirations of William Lloyd Garrison, I say, and let every heart join in saying, and everyone says, God speed the day when human blood shall cease to flow, and every clime be understood, the claims of human brotherhood, and each return for evil good, now blow for blow. That day will come, all feuds to end, and change into a faithful friend, each foe. I do want to say thank you. Now, all you have to do is substitute slavery for immigration. Yeah. And I think you need to remember in Boston at this time, 175 years ago, we had Anthony Burns, we had Thomas Sims, who had run away from slavery because of the Fugitive Slave Act in 1850. And unlike New Bedford, who never returned a former slave to slavery, Boston ended up sending those two men back into slavery. And if you think of immigration, when I see these high school students pulled off the street on their way to school, it reminds me of fugitive slaves 175 years ago. And Frederick Douglass, when he came to North Bridgewater, that's one of the things he and Edward Eels Bennett agreed on, that it was wrong to do that the Constitution protected, and we have certain inalienable rights that he spoke of. And so all those freedoms are being assaulted today. And it is important as a student of history that people do something about it. And because if it continues, it will be our fault because we didn't stand up to it. But again, just being here today, it's just wonderful having this reading. And we were the first of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Brockton was the first city to do it in several languages. And I do want to thank all of our partners, the NAACP and others, Messiah Baptist Church. We have, this is a wonderful legacy that we have here, and I'm hoping that it will continue. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all the readers for coming out today. It's just such an amazing opportunity for community. But I'd like to call up Sophia and Juliana. I think you would all agree that our history needs to be brought forward.
Yes.
How better than with our youth?
Yes.
So today, for our youngest reader, I would say, arguably, I'm going to gift Sophia a t-shirt. So it looks like this.
Wow. All right.
Reading Frederick Douglass. And on the back. So thank you very much, Sophia.
Congratulations.
And Juliana is part of the NAACP Youth Committee. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
And I have 2 t-shirts for you two. So you can, you're both here, so there's 2, so that worked. So we want to just thank our youth for coming out and being part of bringing history forward. Amen. Thank you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. As it's been mentioned, the partners. We can't do this work without partners. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is that, these words are strong words, and these thoughts, we can't just talk about them once a year. So last year, we decided, let's keep the discussion going. And so I'd like to invite the board, the Frederick Douglass Neighborhood Association, all our board and executive committee, please to come up. So we decided to create Discussing Douglass. So we have an ongoing activities that we do just about maybe quarterly, every other month. We've had 2 so far. But the first event we had was February 11th, where we took this speech, we took out portions of it, some quotes, and we discussed them together, right? So all are invited to this. We actually have printed out at the table some of the discussion points that we had the last time. So take a look and see, and if you want to be part of ongoing discussions, come out. The next one we had was February 11th, May 6th, and we discussed another speech of Frederick Douglass, because he did a lot of speaking. And I think it was, I am a women's suffrage man. That was a great one. And then the next one is going to be in August, and we're actually going to talk about his wife, Anna Marie Douglass. Did I say it right?
Yep.
Yes. And so keep this ongoing. So if you'd like to stay connected with what the Frederick Douglass Neighborhood Association is doing, you can find us on Facebook, send a Facebook message. We have a beautiful web page that you can always see what our history is and what's ongoing, and also on Facebook. Did I say that? Email. So if you want to be part of the email list, I have a sign-up sheet. Just put your name there and your email, and you can keep up with what's going on in the future. But I want to thank our board for their commitment. So, you know, we're busy people, right? We're doing so many things. We're here because we love our city. We're here because we love Brockton, we love our history, right? But we're here for community. Now, Cynthia and her daughter Jamie, they're also members and founders of the African American Association. So they have brought our refreshments today, so I hope that you'll stay around for some conversation and for some lunch. You're more than welcome to do that. What else? I just don't want to forget anything. So I think I did everything. Thank you again, Mayor, for coming.
Thank you.
And elected officials that are in the room. We appreciate you. It's a hard job. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else? Because I could go on. But again, thank you all for coming out. Thank you for BCA. Yes.
We appreciate you, Cynthia.
Oh, thank you. So to Janet's point, I am at the helm, President, but guess what? I'm keeping the seat warm.
Yeah.
I'm just keeping the seat warm, please. We need more board members. We need more involvement because this is too important. It's too important. We have our gardeners. We have plenty of ways that we can be connected together, but let's show up and be part of it. So, okay, that's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all.